Hi everyone, welcome back to the SoULL YouTube channel. I am Jean Denny from the School of Unusual Life Learning, where we learn about how life moves and how people change. I'm here today to start a conversation about something we focus most of our attention on during our human life, which motivates us to our best and our worst behaviors, and which I've come to believe we actually know very little about, and that is relationships. Relationships are something like the water to the fish. It's the matrix we swim in. We definitely rely on for our well-being, because who can really be happy without them? But we actually give very little time to consciously learning about. We all know what we're talking about, don't we? But who can point to one? Who can define one? Well, those are the kinds of things I think about. Because I'm a somatic psychotherapist and I've spent years as a hospice worker, I've spent a lot of time watching people change in their relationships, and with a particular focus on energy and the body. So through that, I've gotten some really interesting insights on these crazy things. And obviously, as a human being, I do my own personal field work like you do. How these things work is something our culture should probably teach us very clearly, but alas, it doesn't. And so what I see as a therapist is that we bumble around uneducated about our very own nature, usually damaging mind, body, and each other more than we really need to. So I thought, as a kind of public service, I would do a few short audio blogs, and these will be to give you my cheat sheet on relationships, things you might just want to keep in mind to have healthier ones. These are the kind of things that we think a lot about at SoULL and try to learn about. So I'm just doing some short programs to share the love and give you some insight, and hopefully to help alleviate some of your suffering. Today, we're going to start slow, and I'm going to do just a few short introductions to some relationship ideas. Some of the things I'm going to say will seem obvious, but we're going to just establish some of the facts. So here's the first one. Relationships are really important to human beings, well, duh. And these things, whatever they are really connected to our bodies and our psyches. I know that's obvious, but I need to say it. Whatever they are, they're connected to our bodies and our psyches. I've got a lot of examples of that, but right now I'm thinking of a story I heard on NPR one time about one of the large tsunamis that happened in the East. And a team of post-trauma workers, social workers went in to do trauma work with the survivors. And of course, they wanted to do trauma techniques and talk, and they did talking also. And what interested them is that what these survivors wanted to talk about most was their love relationships. They may have lost family, all possessions, their community, but the most pressing question on their minds was really, who loves me? Where are they? And what do I do next? I have a neuroscience friend, Mark Brady, who tells me that the human brain is always scanning for the answer to one question. And that question is, are you there for me? He calls it the big brain question. We're actually designed to live in relationships, exchanging energy and care with each other. And here's some evidence. Babies actually die without a matrix of relationship support. And we know social relationships extend the lives of the elderly if they're caring ones. We know that good relationships are connected to happiness and well-being at any age, and that they can be incredible sources of support. And we also know that relationships can traumatize us. They can bring us to our knees in lifelong pain. Bad ones make us miserable or sick. I'm not trying to oversimplify a very complex set of diseases, okay? But as a healer, I know that when a client comes in to my office with a cancer diagnosis, almost every time, if I ask, what was happening a year and a half to 2 years ago, there will have been some big life change that involved a relationship, an unresolved grief, or a heartbreak. I know that working with that change or that heartbreak will be a part of their healing. Here's another little story that gives the evidence of this relationship body connection. A few years ago, I was giving a lecture on this about the disruption of the lower body energy when people are going through acute grief. Afterwards, an emergency room doctor, Monica Williams, came up to tell me how regularly, when she has to tell a family member that their loved one has died suddenly, they clutch their lower abdomen. She'd never had a context for understanding why that behavior happened, but I was able to give her one. Our relationships may extend beyond our bodies, but they are rooted in them in predictable ways. But, what are they? The more I've observed them and how they change people, it's really clear to me that they're made of energy. They are not nothing. They're not, and it's not just amorphous energy. I've begun to understand that relationships are actually organized energy, pulsing, changing, forming and unforming bonds that have an almost physical reality without actually being physical. Relationships are actually structures, in a way, by which we exchange energy and information with each other in very predictable ways. Think of information highways on the internet or neural networks in our brain. They develop over time. And of course, those structures connect to our nervous system and our bodies, like I say, in more or less regular ways. Now, the currency of relationships is energy transfer, and something else important: rhythm. It's almost like rhythm is the language that relationships speak. We trust based on a certain degree of predictability, though too much predictability, of course, is boring, right? So here's an example. Have you ever tried to start a relationship with somebody that is erratic in their responses to you? Or you have pacing differences in your exchanges, They might take 3 days to respond, and you respond in 15 minutes. Awkward rhythm. Maybe there's too much energy coming from one person habitually and not enough from another. And that is an imbalance. Those relationship exchange patterns get set up often very early in our nervous systems and our bodies and our families, of course, but also they get set up in particular relationships with people. So I actually believe that these relationship things have an anatomy and physiology, that they are themselves living things. And that's my third point. They're alive. That means that they have a creation phase, and they have a natural arc of constant change, and they also have patterns of closure and ending. So, yeah, this is what I have to say today to get the ball rolling in this little blog series. Relationships are really important aspects of our mind, body, spirit, and our well-being. That they are actually structured pathways for energy exchange that has an anatomy and a physiology that we can actually learn something about. And third, that these structured systems are living things, even though we can't see them. They have an arc of life and they constantly change. We can learn about that set of changes. Now, if you're hearing all this, you might be saying something to yourself that's pretty typical in this time that we're living in. Wow, what a failure I am. I don't have all these relationships. Maybe I just moved to a new town and it isn't easy to connect to people. Or maybe I'm living in the same old town and I don't feel that the people I know really like me very much. Why don't I have the love of my life or 3 best friends? Our bodies long for that kind of connection, of course, all of us do. But let's acknowledge, please, that being lonely is right now, in our time, an epidemic on the planet. In a way, it is what unites us. I do believe this. And this is so because there are a lot of essential pieces missing to make our relationships work well, that were there throughout our evolution but are missing now. And this has nothing to do with you or how lovable you are. We just don't know how to cultivate and take care of these precious things very well. On the bright side, with a little know-how, we really can learn how to do them better. It isn't that hard. So I don't say this to make you despair, but to give you hope, to acknowledge that loneliness is pretty normal right now, even without a pandemic, and it's not your fault. And we can do things to make better ones and to bring them into being. And that's what I'll be talking about in some of the next few episodes here, these short audio blog posts. Watch for the next one, which I'm going to call Breathing Relationships. Yes, they do breathe. Also, just a reminder that on April 10th, I'll be doing a short exploration on working with grief. It is just donation, $10 donation or whatever you can. And you can find out more at jeandenny.com, my website, jeandenny.com/events, JeanneDenney, lowercase, jeandenny.com/events. There's room, and you'd be so welcome. Dear friends, if you've listened, thank you. Pass the word and the wisdom, and I look forward to being with you again soon. Thanks.